There was more to Gene Wilder than just his wacky hairstyle and infectious smile. Everyone from Willy Wonka to the filmmakers was enchanted by his screen presence. Behind the jokes and mirth, though, was a life of hidden tragedies and hardships. Until recently, he kept a lot of stuff under wraps. At this point, his daughter has received more attention than before. Yet, who exactly is she? Have you seen her lately? Has she spoken up at last? Could she possibly have the key to unlocking Gene Wilder's genuine story? Come with us as we trace his life's path back to its inception and speculate on what may have surfaced after his death. The unknown beginning of Gene Wilder's existence. It wasn't always Gene who Gene Wilder was. Jerome Silberman came into this world in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on June 11, 1933. The patriarch of his Jewish family hails from Russia, and William Sperman was a salesperson for novelty goods. However, Jane's true tale started with something more profound. His mother fell ill at the tender age of 8 because young Gene was suffering from rheumatic illness. The doctor assigned her a peculiar task. His one line that altered the course of events was, "Try and make her laugh." He wasn't merely concerned with assisting his mother. It was the catalyst that sent June on the path to a career in acting and comedy. His dream was further solidified after seeing his older sister perform. He pleaded with her acting instructor to allow him to join after being so moved by her performance. The instructor had said, "Come back when you're 13. Gene contacted the student the day following his 13th birthday. As promised, the instructor continued to instruct him for 2 years. His mother, Jane, recognized his unique qualities. She believed that he would benefit from attending Black Fox, a military school in Hollywood, because she didn't want his potential to go unrecognized. However, Gene knew that time was bleak. Because he was the sole Jewish child in his class, he was the target of bullying, and as he admitted later, physical violence. He departed quickly. Upon his return to Milwaukee, he quickly immersed himself in the theater scene. His first paid job was as Balthazar in Romeo and Juliet when he was 15 years old. Eventually, in 1951, he earned his diploma from Washington High School. Gene made a really sincere statement many years later, despite the fact that he was raised Jewish. "My faith is the only one I follow. Despite my lack of faith in God and other aspects of Judaism, I identify as Jewish and am grateful to be Jewish." He continued to develop his faith in his own unique way despite that notion. Afterwards, he enrolled in the University of Iowa to major in communication and theater arts. Under the auspices of the Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity, he dove headfirst into the performing arts. After finishing high school in 1955, he pursued his acting education at England's Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. He became the school champion in fencing in only 6 months, even though he was a freshman. Gene, nevertheless, was planning something beyond just swordplay. He went back to New York so he could study the Stanislavski method of acting. After re-establishing himself at the HP studio, he relocated to Queens to live with his sister and her family. A life transformed from that of an army paramedic to that of an actress. The 1956 enlistment in the United States Army was a dramatic turning point in Gene's life. He was assigned to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, to learn medical profession after basic training. After that, he was given the option of where to serve, and he chose the Pennsylvania Army Hospital in Valley Forge. Why? I chose it because of its proximity to the Big Apple. No matter how long Gene was in the service, he never stopped dreaming of being an actor. Because of his proximity to the city, he was able to keep up with his acting studies at the HB studio. At the hospital, he played a crucial role. He was an employee of the Neurology and Psychiatry Division. His mother's death from ovarian cancer in November 1957, nevertheless, was a more devastating blow. Gene got out of the military and went back to New York a year after that. He devoted himself entirely to acting at this point. He dedicated himself fully to his work after receiving a scholarship. Unemployment benefits, savings, and odd jobs like limo driving and fencing instruction got him by at first. In Massachusetts, Gene had his breakthrough role in Twelfth Night, directed by Herbert Burkhoff. He was more than an actor in that scene. Fencing choreography was another one of his occupations. Greater things came from that position. During his 3 years at UTA, he trained under Heron and Burghoff. Then another actor, Charles Grodin, persuaded him to enroll in Lee Strasberg's renowned method acting class. Gann became a member of the actor's studio and was subsequently admitted. During this period, he decided to go by a different name. He decided he didn't like Jerry Sperman's voice in Mecky Beath and transformed into Gene Wilder instead. He thought of the author Thornton Wilder when he saw Wilder. His admiration for Look Homewood Angel's Eugene Gant inspired Gene. Additionally, he recalled a relative named Gene who served as a navigator during WE. That picture lingered in his mind. A subsequent joke from Gene claimed that even he couldn't picture Gene Wilder in the role of Macbeth. Yet, the moniker endured. Only gradually did his career take off. Roots and The Complacent Lover were two of his stage productions that garnered him recognition. He took up the prize for Best Supporting Actor from the latter, the Clarence Derwin Award. His early work included a starring part opposite Kirk Douglas as Billy Bibbit in the Broadway production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. There were even greater things to come after that performance. The first big break and the Mel Brooks connection. Gene made her stage debut in 1963's Mother Courage and Her Children. Anne Bancroft, who was romantically involved with a young writer named Mel Brooks, played the starring role. It was at that moment that she introduced the two men, and Gene's career was changed irrevocably. A screenplay titled Springtime for Hitler was in the works by Brooks. His words to Gene were, "You'd be perfect for the role of Leo Bloom." Gene consented to hold off until Brooks expressed interest in continuing. Years slipped away without a peep. During that time, Gene kept himself occupied with stage, screen, and even a 1967 cameo in Bonnie and Clyde. At last, Brooks made contact to cast Zero Mostel opposite Gann as Leo Bloom. Gann was invited to read lines. Finally, Mostel granted the go-ahead. Instantly, Gann secured his debut leading part in 1967's The Producers. Not everyone liked the film, and it initially bombed at the box office, despite what one critic at the New York Times dubbed black college humor. The film eventually became a beloved classic among comedy purists. The Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay went to Brooks. For Best Supporting Actor, Gene was nominated. Both of their careers reached new heights because to the film. Gene landed a role in the Paris film Start the Revolution Without Me after appearing in The Producers. He went back to New York after finishing and read an exciting screenplay. In the Bronx, there lives a relative of Quack's of fortune. In order to begin their hunt for a director, he contacted Sidney Glazia, who had previously produced The Producers. They initially tried to get in touch with Jean Renoir, but their schedules clashed. Waris Hussein was eventually employed. In 1969, Gene and Margaret Kidd starred in a film that was shot in Dublin and Ardmore Studios. Nothing was easy on the way from Jerome Silberman to Gene Wilder. Making his mom laugh, his time at the Army Hospital, and his encounter with Mel Brooks all contributed to shaping the man we would later love to know and adore from his cinematic appearances. As Willy Wonka bids farewell for the last time, the 1971 film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, adapted from the novel by Roald Dahl, had Gene Wilder in the lead role. Director Mel Stewart offered him the part the moment he read a few lines. Major actors such as John Pertwee, Joel Grey, Fred Astaire, and Ron Moody were considered for the role before Gene was cast. The man himself, Roald Dahl, desired Spike Milligan. Gene was the one who gave life to the enigmatic Candyman, even though Peter Sellers pleaded with Dahl to cast him. Upon its initial release, the picture failed to generate substantial revenue, but critics like Roger Ebert gave it good reviews and even drew comparisons to Oz. The film eventually became a classic, earning rave reviews from critics and an impressive 92% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Gene was nominated for a Golden Globe, and the film was nominated for Best Score at the Oscars, despite the film's poor box office performance. Gene's subsequent 3 feature films also bombed at the box office. Both of them begin the uprising independently of Quaxer and Me. His previous collaborations with Mel Brooks felt like trite knockoffs of Fortune's Cousin in the Bronx. The next project Gene worked on was his best bet for a turnaround. Although he was hesitant to ask, Gene accepted Woody Allen's part offer in the film Everything You Wanted to Know About Sex, making almost $18 million from a just $200 million budget. The film was a smashing success. Gene then began working on a new concept titled Young Frankenstein. When he phoned Mel Brooks, all he had was a 2-page synopsis, but Brooks wasn't enthusiastic. Peter Boll and Marty Feldman were on the list of potential actors that Gann's agent wanted to see in a script. Gene devised a sequence in which Feldman and his characters meet at Transylvania Station after seeing him on television. Almost word for word, that scene remained in the finished film. After seeing him pitch the idea, his agent secured Mel Brooks as director. Despite his initial reluctance, Brooks eventually accepted after 2 financially disastrous films. Around the same time, Gene received an offer to play the fox in The Little Prince. But in a state of fear, Brooks contacted him prior to the start of filming. Both of Brooks's initial casting choices for the character of the Waco Kid had left before filming began on Blazing Saddles. In a last-minute substitution, John filmed Blazing Saddles and immediately moved on to The Little Prince. They first approached Columbia Pictures about selling Young Frankenstein when it was complete, but they ended up going with 20th Century Fox due to financial differences. There was a 5-year contract that Gene and Brooks were meant to sign. Popularity soared for Young Frankenstein, nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Academy Awards. It was ultimately defeated by The Godfather Part 2. As production was underway, Gene had a change of heart. At issue here was the brother of Sherlock Holmes. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother, a comedic duo that revolutionized Hollywood, was his directorial debut and was released in 1975 based on that notion. Gene received a script titled Super Chief from his agent in 1975. Gene was on board with the idea, but he wanted Richard Pryor to be a part of it as well. Only Pryor, he claimed, could pull it off without coming across as disrespectful. Silver Streak became the working title after Pryor joined the cast. Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor made history when they joined forces for the first time in this film. Hollywood had never seen an interracial comedy combination like them before. While shooting Silver Streak, John began penning a screenplay for Federico Fellini-inspired film The World's Greatest Lover. Despite Gene's efforts in all 3 areas, critics were unimpressed with the finished product. In 1979, John appeared in The Frisco Kid. John Wayne was going to star in it, but he withdrew. Instead, the part went to Harrison Ford, who was only beginning his acting career. Afterwards, Sidney Poitier's 1980 film Stir Crazy followed. Although Pryor's battle with a severe drug addiction made filming difficult, the movie was a worldwide smash. One of the best 15 comedy duos in pop culture history was Gene and Pryor's characters, Skip Donahue and Harry Monroe, according to New York Magazine's 2007 ranking. The combination of Gene Wilder and previously was truly remarkable, Sidney Poitier remarked. For some reason, when you pair him Pryor with Gene Wilder, they make a particular kind of magic together. The 2 actors became friends and went on to collaborate on a 1982 film, Hanky Panky, originally titled Traces. Gilda Radner, who would later become Gene's wife, was someone he met on set. Gene and Gilda collaborated on other films for the remainder of that decade. Following Hanky Panky, Gene helmed 1984's The Woman in Red, which featured Gilda Kelly LeBrock and himself. Not only did Haunted Honeymoon bomb at the box office, critics weren't even crazy about it. Regardless, Best Original Song went to The Woman in Red at the Oscars. To which Stevie responds, "I just called to say I love you." TriStar Pictures subsequently requested a sequel starring Gene and Pryor. If Gann could alter the screenplay, he would agree. The end product was May 1989's See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Despite universal disapproval, critics couldn't deny the electric chemistry displayed by Gene and Pryor in the film. A total dud, Roger Ebert said. Some thought it was immature and full of foolish jokes. Despite the fact that it received mostly negative reviews, many still considered it to be their breakout film. Moving final scenes and a subdued farewell to Hollywood. In the 1990 film Funny About Love, Gene portrayed a political cartoonist. Then, for his final picture, Another You in 1991, he worked with Richard Pryor again. Unfortunately, Pryor's advanced MS symptoms were clearly visible on screen by that point. Both Gene and Pryor had their final major roles in this film. At the box office, neither film did very well. Gene shifted his attention to television after that. The Wisconsin Performing Arts Hall of Fame in Milwaukee inducted him in 1991, a fitting tribute to him in his hometown. Something Wilder, a sitcom that Gene starred in 1994, ran for only 1 season due to poor ratings. He was in 3 television movies in 1999. 2 were A&D mystery features, Murder in a Small Town and The Lady in Question, and 1 was an NBC adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. Gene was an amateur investigator who co-wrote the scripts and played the role of a theater director. His last appearance on film was in 2003, as a guest star on Will and Grace. Will Truman's boss, Mr. Stein, was played by him. As a result, Gann was named the show's Outstanding Guest Actor in a Comedy Series Emmy winner. Gene then devoted himself fully to writing and painting, leading a life of contemplation through words and color. He eventually left acting behind. During their golden years, Gene and his wife devoted themselves to literature, art, and philanthropy. Together with Dr. Stephen Piver, he chronicled Gilda's ordeal with ovarian cancer in 1998 in their book Gilda's Disease. Non-Hodgkin lymphoma was Gene's own diagnosis in 1999. Nevertheless, he verified the cancer's disappearance in 2005 following chemotherapy and a stem cell transplant. A small dot. To help out low-income families, Gene read a passage from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory at a 2001 benefit performance at the Westport Country Playhouse. The University of Iowa received a plethora of his personal effects, including scripts, photographs, letters, and more, in the same year. A memoir of love and art. Kiss Me Like a Stranger was Gene's self-published memoir that came out on March 1, 2005. His articles covered topics like his upbringing, professional life, and the passing of Gilda. His first novel, My French, was published 2 years later. It was set during World War I. His second novel, The Woman Who Wouldn't, was published in 2008 after My French. His 2010 story collection, What Is This Thing Called Love, was also published by him. Something to Remember You by Sai, A Dangerous Romance, his third book, was published in 2013. Gene addressed his quiet departure from acting in an interview with Alec Baldwin for Turner Classic Movies, saying, "I don't like show business, I realized. I like show, but I don't like the business." He was asked about a possible acting comeback in an interview with Time Out New York in 2013. His response was as follows, "I'm sick of watching bombing, shooting, killing, swearing, and 3D. I get 52 movies sent to me every year, and maybe there are 3 good ones. That's why I went into writing. It's not that I wouldn't act again, but I don't get anything like that." While Gene may have left the spotlight, his legacy continued to thrive on the internet. A still from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory shot to online fame in the 2010s, becoming a legendary meme in the process. The picture, titled Condescending Wonka, featured Gene grinning sarcastically while wearing his purple jacket and top hat. It was just another way he had an impression on popular culture. There were unanswered questions lurking beneath all that vibrancy, humor, and emotion. He unexpectedly lost his daughter. While attending acting school in New York, Gene Wilder met Mary Mercier, who would later become his first wife. Although they tied the knot in 1960, their marriage was short-lived. They were divorced in 1965 after a long separation. A close friend of Gene's sisters, Mary Joan Schutz, began seeing him shortly after. From a prior marriage, Mary Joan had a daughter, Catherine, who was quite young at the time. After Catherine began referring to him as Dad, Gene believed he had made the correct decision and wed her mother in October 1967. In that very year, he also took Catherine in as his own. They lived together for a while, and Gene showed his daughter his undivided attention. However, the marriage failed after 7 years. Catherine began to suspect her father, Gene Jones, of infidelity after he and Mary Jones separated. His co-star in Young Frankenstein, actress Malign Khan, was someone she believed he was having an affair with, in her opinion. The start of a difficult chapter was that mistrust. Catherine grew emotionally distant and severed ties with Gene. Their connection was severed. People still remember something Gene said in an interview with Larry King in 2002. He asked, "Do I?" when questioned about his family status. "No. Long ago I experienced the loss of my daughter. I will not delve into that tragic story." The age at which the distance became permanent, he said, was 22 or 23. Gene published a memoir titled Kiss Me Like a Stranger in 2005, but he never revealed all the information. He expressed his desire for Catherine to peruse it at a later time. Is it likely that she will read it? No. However, I am crossing my fingers that it will shed light on certain things she was reluctant to comprehend. Despite his knowledge that she might never return, that line demonstrated his profound longing for her. Even though Gene was childless, he continued to refer to Catherine as his daughter right up to the end. Gilda Ranner and an alternative form of heartache. Even though Gene's second marriage ended in divorce, he did manage to find love again. While filming Hanky Panky, he met Gilda Ranner, a comedian. Even though they were both married at the time, they decided to leave their marriages and be together since their connection was that deep. Merged in 1987 were Gene and Gilda. They were very much in love with one another and they wanted to establish a family. But they had a tough road ahead of them. They made an effort to start a family. If it didn't work, they tried in vitro fertilization, IVF, multiple times. Gilda was unfortunate to experience miscarriage during both of her pregnancies. They were unable to realize their lifelong goal of becoming parents. Subsequently, shocking news arrived. A grapefruit-sized tumor was discovered in Gilda's body by the doctors. Stage IV ovarian cancer was the prognosis. Cancer was a terrifying thought for Gilda. It had killed her father. The same struggle was now besetting her. 30 radiation treatments and 9 rounds of chemotherapy were part of her treatment. Gene remained by her side throughout. a part of him was always with her. He was there for her, offering encouragement as he held her hand. Gilda died in May 1989 despite their best attempts. Yet again, Gene's heart broke. His daughter was already dead. He had just lost the woman he loved very much. Although their time together was brief, it had a profound impact on him and brought back the need to be a father, spouse, and family member. Catherine Wilder's account of events. Catherine Wilder came into this world in the US in the 70s. No one ever found out who her biological father was. We know almost little about her childhood other than that she was the daughter of Mary Joan Schutz. After completing high school in her hometown, she went on to college. Gene and Catherine had a close relationship for a long time. He became her biological father, and she even adopted his surname. Everything shifted, though, after Gene's mother and Gene filed for a divorce. Her mother's trust was eroded when she suspected Gene of having an affair with Malign Khan. Because of that idea, she stopped caring about him altogether. She eventually severed all ties with the outside world. There was an eternal hush over their relationship since she would never mention him again. Catherine continued to avoid the limelight even when she entered adulthood. She was tight-lipped about her birthday. Her biological father remained a mystery to her. Additionally, she refrained from discussing her personal life or relationships. She maintained complete secrecy. Even though she didn't use social media, being the daughter of Gene Wilder ensured that her name would be in the news. Catherine began to establish her reputation once she left her father behind. She got a job acting and started making appearances in movies and TV series. Romeo and Juliet, a production by Burr Theatre Live, featured her in 2016. Murder on the Orient Express 2017 featured her in the role of a prostitute. In the same year, she was also in the historical drama Frontier, playing the part of Chuck. She was able to detach herself professionally from her father's popularity thanks to these parts. She reportedly had a net worth about $500,000 by 2022. No matter how hazy her primary source of money was, she was still doing fine. In her own way, she had built a life for herself. Despite the fact that she was widely recognized as the daughter of Gene Wilder, she had established her own identity in the profession, a nephew who became a son and all in between. It is safe to say that Gene Wilder was never a parent. However, his heart was filled with someone else. This is his nephew, Jordan Walker Perlman. In his time in Hollywood, Jordan held the positions of producer, writer, and director. Gene and Jordan had a close relationship. Jan took care of him since he was a son. The 1991 wedding of Gene and Karen Webbor was the second time Jordan served as best man. Gan served in various capacities, including that of ring bearer, best man emeritus, and even substitute parent for Jordan during his 2015 marriage to Elizabeth Hunter. In his elation, Gene danced joyfully down the aisle that day. Following Jane's passing, Jordan conveyed a deeply moving message. Gene, he continued, died while listening to Ella Fitzgerald's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I am Jan's child, he said. They were so deeply in love with each other, and that line spoke it all. Even though everyone else recognized Gene's star power, Jordan considered him family. Despite Gene's many tragedies, the death of his daughter, Gilda, and his decision to leave acting, his friendship with Jordan endured. Gan may have suffered the loss of a kid, but he found solace in the arrival of a second child. Despite Catherine's absence, Gene's life was rich with the people he cared about. The despair and the lack of optimism persisted indefinitely. According to Gene, he wrote the book even though he didn't expect Catherine would read it. He said things that I did with love for her. Not only did he leave behind a tale, but a message as well. With those very words, a silent hope that his lost daughter could comprehend one day. The grin he fought to preserve right up until the very end. At the age of 83, Gene Wilder went away on August 29, 2016. His home in Stamford, Connecticut was the site of his death. Complications from his Alzheimer's disease, which he had been battling for 3 years with little public awareness of, were the root cause. As a family, Gene and his loved ones decided to conceal his condition. This was later clarified by his nephew, Jordan Walker Perlman. Gene, he added, didn't want to dilute Willy Wonka's enchantment for kids. If children saw him, he hoped they wouldn't associate him with illness or misery. According to Jordan, the thought of the world without a single grin was too much to handle. Despite his illness, Gene maintained his kind and cheerful personality. His ability to recognize loved ones was never taken away by Alzheimer's, according to his relatives. Furthermore, it had no effect on his core identity. According to them, his life-affirming fundamental personality was never taken by this sickness. Gene loved listening to Ella Fitzgerald's rendition of Over the Rainbow in his last moments because it was one of his favorite songs. This was his way of leaving this world, silently, gently, and according to his own wishes. Because his illness had been kept under wraps, many were shocked to hear of his death. A sincere statement was delivered by Jordan to make the announcement. He pointed out, "It is almost unbearable for us to contemplate our life without him." Mel Brooks, joining numerous other celebrities and fans in expressing their sadness at Gene's death, said, "He was such a dear friend," during an appearance on The Tonight Show. "The impact is enormous when it really happens, even though I expected him to leave. To this day, I feel the effects. Long live Gene." Joining Brooks were a few others. Carl Reiner, Billy Crystal, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Russell Crowe were among those who paid their respects. The 2017 Oscars included an in memoriam section that paid tribute to Gan. Remembering Gene Wilder, a documentary, had its international premiere in May 2023 at the Los Angeles Jewish Film Festival. In 2024 and 2025, his life narrative was brought to life through a stage production called Gan and Gilda, which revealed the years he spent with Gilda Arner. After leaving his wife Karen Bohr behind, Gene disappeared. His daughter Catherine also managed to outlive him, however her story ended somewhat differently. Even in his final days, Gene clung to the notion that his daughter would understand. It was for this reason that he wrote his memoir, Kiss Me Like a Stranger, in 2005. According to him, his daughter was the inspiration for the piece. Despite his continued doubts about her reading it, he conveyed his desire for it to explain things she had wished she could have grasped. Gene will be remembered through his films, memories, and laughs, but his bond with his beloved daughter remains unfinished. Will Gene Wilder's daughter ever read the book her dad wrote for her?